Even when there are sounds all around, there are moments when something inside you suddenly becomes still, and you begin to sense something larger than thought itself. You walk down the street, look at people, at the sky, at the light in the windows, and suddenly a strange feeling arises, as if the world is speaking to you without words, as if something invisible gently touches your field, your awareness, your soul. We are used to thinking of ourselves as a body, hands, eyes, heart, breath. We measure ourselves by what can be seen and touched: pain in the back, fatigue in the legs, heaviness in the chest, a pulse in the temples. This feels logical. The body is close, always present, and it speaks the loudest. But if we were only a body, much of life would not unfold with such mystery. Sometimes you sense another person's mood, even when they are smiling. They say the right words, behave calmly, yet inside you anxiety rises. Or the opposite happens. A quiet trust appears. You have not analyzed anything yet, have not had time to think, but you already know. As if there is a subtle instrument within you that reads invisible signals. Sometimes you feel drawn to someone you have just met, not because they are attractive or interesting, but because breathing feels easier near them. And sometimes the opposite happens. You enter a room and suddenly want to leave. No one has done anything wrong, yet something inside tightens, as if the space itself is telling you, this is not yours. And sometimes past events imprint themselves so deeply that you feel them not as memories, but as states. You may believe that you have already lived through it, let it go, understood it. But a familiar smell, sound, or tone of voice appears, and the body reacts before the mind. The heart races, the hands grow cold, the throat tightens, a wave rises inside you that logic cannot explain. Here a question emerges. Why do memories live not only in the mind? Why is it often the body, not the brain, that raises alarm or joy first? Why can you forget an event, yet not forget the feeling it left behind? You have noticed this. The mind knows how to persuade. It says, everything is fine. This is not dangerous. This is already in the past. But the body does not believe it. It seems to hold its own truth, and that truth can be stronger than any words. So what are we really? If there is a level within us that feels before we think, if there is a memory that lives not in logic but in depth, if we perceive people and events not only with our eyes and ears, but with something else. What if a human being has an invisible structure? Not a metaphor, not poetry, but a real inner system. Subtle, energetic, multi-layered. One that connects the body, emotions, thoughts, and what we call the soul. And what if the memory of the soul is not stored in the brain, but in a field, in energy, in subtle layers that go deeper than familiar psychology? Then it becomes clearer why some feelings arise without reason, why certain fears appear as if from nowhere, and why some meetings feel destined even before the mind understands what is happening. This is exactly what we will talk about today. The subtle bodies of a human being, how the aura is structured, why it changes, what it reflects, and most importantly, how the energetic memory of the soul works, why the past leaves traces, and how these traces can be felt, understood, and gradually healed. Imagine that you are not a single shell, but an entire world. And within this world, there are layers you may not see, but can feel. And if you begin to listen, you may suddenly realize, much within you has always known the answer. You simply became accustomed to listening only to the loudest voices, the voice of the body and the voice of the mind. When we begin to look at a human being not only as a physical body, the picture slowly starts to change. It becomes deeper and more dimensional. A person is no longer something flat or easily explained. Instead, they begin to resemble a complex, multi-layered system where each level influences the others, even when we are not aware of it. Imagine a human being as a space, not as a shape, but as a field. Within this field, there are dense layers and more subtle ones. The densest layer is the physical body. This is what we see every day. We feel its weight, its tension, its pain, and its pleasure. It follows the laws of matter, time, and space. It ages, becomes tired, and recovers. And this is the level with which we most often identify ourselves. But the physical body is neither the beginning nor the end. It is only the outermost layer. Just as a planet has an atmosphere, a magnetic field, and hidden layers beneath the surface, a human being has levels that cannot be seen with the eyes, but can be sensed through their effects. The subtle bodies are energetic layers that permeate and surround the physical body. They are not separate from it. They exist in constant interaction with it. Every thought, every feeling, every inner experience is reflected not only in the psyche, but also within these subtle structures. Ancient traditions spoke of multiple bodies for a reason. In different cultures, they were called by different names, yet the essence remained similar. A human being was understood as a being composed of body, energy, feelings, thoughts, and a deeper essence. All of these levels were considered real, not symbolic. Why was this important? Because people observed that not all illnesses begin in the body. Not all problems arise from external circumstances. Sometimes an emotional conflict appears first. Then the state of energy changes, and only later does a physical symptom emerge. Sometimes changing an inner attitude is enough for the body to begin responding differently. The connection between these bodies works constantly, even when we do not think about it. Emotions affect the body. Prolonged anxiety can tighten the chest. Suppressed anger can turn into chronic tension. Sadness can make breathing feel heavy. These are not poetic images, but real sensations familiar to almost everyone. Thoughts shape our state on an even subtler level. Repeated beliefs gradually become the background of life. If a person spends years believing the world is dangerous, the body lives in a state of defense. If someone is convinced they do not deserve love, their energy becomes closed and contracted. And on the other hand, calm and clear thoughts can bring a sense of stability and inner warmth. The subtle bodies can be seen as layers of perception and experience. Each of them has its own function. One is connected with life force, another with emotions, another with thinking, and another with the deep memory of the soul. None of them exists on its own. They overlap, interweave, and either strengthen or weaken one another's influence. That is why it sometimes feels as if a problem is located in one place, while its source lies somewhere else. The body hurts, but the cause is emotional. The emotion is stuck, but the root lies in a belief. The belief exists, but it is connected to an experience from long ago, perhaps even beyond this lifetime. To truly understand how the aura and energetic memory work, it is important first to see this whole picture, to see a human being not as a set of symptoms and reactions, but as a living system, as a flow in which energy, feelings, and thoughts are constantly moving. When we speak about life force, we usually describe it with words like energy, vitality, inner resources. We clearly feel when there is a lot of it, and we notice immediately when it begins to fade. This level is directly connected to the etheric body, the closest subtle layer to the physical structure of a human being. The etheric body can be imagined as an energetic framework. It mirrors the shape of the physical body, permeates it, and at the same time extends slightly beyond it. Through this layer, life energy enters the body, and through it, that energy is distributed throughout all systems. This is not an abstract idea. This is the level that responds first to fatigue, stress, and overload. When the etheric body is full and stable, a person feels vitality without a clear reason. Waking up becomes easier, recovery happens faster, and physical demands are easier to handle. Even when the body is tired, there is still a sense of inner support. But when the etheric body is depleted, the physical body may look healthy, while strength is already gone. Sleep does not bring rest. Simple actions require effort, and a feeling of emptiness appears. Many people confuse physical fatigue with energetic exhaustion. Physical fatigue passes after rest. Energetic exhaustion does not. It accumulates when a person lives for a long time in tension, fear, or constant readiness to defend themselves. Stress does not simply tire the psyche, it literally compresses the etheric field, making the flow of energy weak and uneven. Fear acts in a particularly destructive way. When a person is afraid, their energy stops flowing freely, it seems to freeze. And when fear becomes a habitual background of life, the etheric body begins to lose density. This can show up as a feeling of cold in the body, frequent colds, or weakness without an obvious cause. The etheric body is closely connected to physical health. It takes part in recovery processes. This is why a wound sometimes heals quickly and other times takes much longer. This is why one person returns to life easily after an illness, while another continues to feel drained for a long time. The difference lies not only in the body, but also in the state of the energetic level. The first signs of imbalance in the etheric body often go unnoticed. A person simply says, "I'm tired, I am burned out, I have no desire for anything." They may look for reasons in age, work, or circumstances, but often the cause is deeper, a loss of life energy. It is important to understand one thing. The etheric body does not become depleted on its own. It responds to how we live, to how we breathe, how we experience emotions, how we treat ourselves. Constant suppression of emotions, living through effort, and the absence of rest and joy gradually weaken the energetic double of the body. That's why restoring strength does not begin only with sleep and nutrition. It begins with a shift in inner state, with allowing oneself to relax, with stepping out of constant struggle. But the etheric body is only the first level beyond the physical. It is responsible for life energy, but not for how we feel life itself. Feelings, emotional experiences, and inner waves exist on another level, where joy can lift us up and pain can leave a trace for years. If the etheric body is responsible for life energy, then the astral body is the space where our emotions live. Joy and fear, love and pain, attachment and rejection, all of these are not just psychological reactions. They are energetic processes that leave an imprint within the subtle structure of a human being. The astral body can be imagined as a mobile and fluid field. It is constantly changing. It reacts to words, to looks, to memories, to expectations. Through this level, we feel connection with other people. This is where the sense of closeness or distance is born. Why do emotions carry such power? Because they contain energy. When a person feels genuine joy, their field expands. When they experience fear, the field contracts. When emotions are lived through freely, energy moves. But when emotions are suppressed, rejected, or get stuck, dense zones form within the astral body. Joy and fear leave energetic traces in different ways. Joy fills, strengthens, and lightens the field. Fear fixes attention, compresses space, and creates tension. And while joy tends to pass naturally, fear often remains longer than the event itself. It seems to be recorded deep within the astral layer. Emotional wounds do not arise only from intense events. Sometimes a long period of pain, loneliness, or lack of recognition is enough. If a person could not express their feelings, could not be heard, could not fully live through what was happening to them, the emotion does not leave. It turns into an energetic knot. These knots can remain hidden for a long time. A person lives, works, builds relationships. But at certain moments the knot becomes activated. A similar situation, a familiar tone of voice, a specific look, and the past returns. not as a memory but as a sensation, as if time has folded in on itself. This is why past experiences return, even when the mind says, "This no longer matters." The astral body does not understand logic. It lives through sensation, and if a feeling was never completed, it continues to exist. The astral body is directly connected with relationships. We sense people on this level. We can feel whether it is safe to be near someone, whether they are sincere, whether they are open, and if we carry old emotional knots, they influence whom we attract and whom we push away. Sometimes a person finds themselves in similar relationships again and again, with different people, but with the same inner feeling. This is not a coincidence. It is the work of the astral body trying to complete an unfinished experience. Understanding this level gives a key to healing. Emotions do not need to be suppressed. They need to be felt and acknowledged. When a feeling is recognized, energy begins to move. When movement returns, the knots gradually dissolve. But emotions are not the whole picture. Behind them stands how we interpret what happens, the meanings we assign to events, the beliefs we form based on experience. If the astral body stores feelings, then the mental body shapes how we understand the world. This is the level of thoughts, meanings, and beliefs. What we call a worldview is, in essence, the structure of the mental body. Every thought is not just a word in the mind, it is a form of energy. It has direction, density, and stability. A passing thought appears and disappears, but a recurring thought becomes fixed. It turns into a background through which a person perceives reality. The mental body forms gradually. From childhood, we absorb ideas about who we are, what the world is like, what is possible, and what is not. At first, these ideas come from the outside, from parents, society, and experience. Over time, they become an inner voice, the very voice that comments on everything that happens. Beliefs can be supportive. They create a sense of inner support, trust, and strength. Or they can be limiting. Quietly, almost unnoticed, they narrow the space of life. A person may not even be aware of them, yet they are the ones that shape choices, reactions, and expectations. For example, if there is a belief that the world is dangerous, the body lives in constant tension. If there is a belief that love must be earned, a person will repeatedly try to prove their worth. If there is a thought that happiness never lasts, joy will be accompanied by anxiety. Repeated thoughts gradually shape destiny, not because the world magically reacts to words, but because the mental body directs attention. A person begins to notice only what confirms their beliefs, and in this way, the same scenario becomes reinforced. This is why similar situations repeat themselves. Circumstances, people, and places change, but the inner feeling remains the same. The mental body keeps replaying a familiar pattern. It seeks confirmation of what it already considers to be true. It is important to understand that beliefs do not arise from nowhere. They are born from experience, most often emotional experience. A strong feeling becomes linked to a conclusion, and that conclusion settles in as truth, even if it was formed in a moment of pain, fear, or vulnerability. The mental body is closely connected with the astral body. Emotion feeds thought. Thought strengthens emotion. And if this loop remains unconscious, it can continue for years. A person may believe that this is simply how life works, not realizing that they are viewing it through an old filter. Awareness begins to dissolve this loop. When a person notices their thoughts, they are no longer completely merged with them. A space appears between the observer and the thought, and within that space, choice becomes possible. But there is a level even deeper, a place where not only the thoughts and emotions of this life are stored, a place where experience is recorded that cannot always be explained logically, where the roots of strange fears, unexplainable attractions, and a sense of destiny reside. There are experiences that cannot be explained by the events of this lifetime alone. Fears with no obvious cause, a pull towards certain places, cultures, or historical periods, a sense of guilt or obligation that seems to arise from deep within, without any specific event behind it. This is where we approach the level known in esoteric traditions as the causal body. The causal body can be imagined as an archive of the soul's experience. This is not memory in the usual sense. It is not a collection of images or stories. It is a field of cause and effect. Every experience that was lived, realized, or left unfinished leaves an energetic imprint on this level. Energetic memory is the soul's ability to preserve experienced states. Not the details of events, but their essence. The fear of loss, the joy of union, the pain of betrayal, the exhilaration of freedom. These states can pass from one incarnation to another if they were never fully lived through. The causal body is linked to past lives, not as fantasy, but as continuity of experience. Even a person who does not believe in reincarnation may notice strange repetitions, similar life themes. The same turns of fate, strong reactions to situations that objectively should not feel so significant. This level also holds ancestral memory, the experience of ancestors, lineage trauma, unfulfilled destinies, powerful vows and prohibitions that are transmitted not through words, but through inner states. A person may feel limitations that do not belong to them personally, yet still influence their choices. Fateful events also leave traces in the causal body, moments after which life is divided into before and after, losses, meetings, decisions made under intense inner pressure. If awareness was absent in those moments, the imprint remains active. This is why some fears have no cause in this lifetime. A person may fear water, heights, fire, intimacy, or responsibility without having any traumatic experience. These reactions can be echoes of old states that were never completed. Karmic imprints are not punishment. They are unfinished lessons, situations the soul returns to in order to change the way they are lived, not to suffer, but to become aware. When a lesson is experienced differently, the imprint loses its power. The causal body does not rigidly dictate fate. It offers themes, directions, opportunities for growth. A person always retains free will. Awareness has the power to transform even the deepest patterns. Understanding this level brings a sense of meaning. Even difficult events begin to feel not like chaos, but like part of a greater journey. A journey in which the soul learns, remembers, and gradually frees itself from old bonds. But the causal body is not the final layer. All of these levels together form a field that extends beyond the physical body, a field that can be felt, that changes, that interacts with other fields. This field is called the aura. The aura is not a separate shell and not an abstract glow around a person. It is the sum of all subtle bodies united into a single energetic field. It forms where the etheric, astral, mental, and causal levels intertwine and begin to interact with the world. The aura is constantly changing. It is alive. It responds to thoughts, emotions, events, and surroundings. Even a single conversation can alter its density and state. Sometimes after speaking with someone, we feel a surge of strength. Other times we feel tired and drained. This is not accidental. It is the interaction of fields. When a person is in a harmonious inner state, their aura becomes more even and stable. Energy flows freely. The field feels whole. In this state, it is easier to maintain boundaries, make decisions, and feel aligned with one's place in life. When there are inner conflicts, suppressed emotions, or deep fatigue, the aura becomes uneven. Breaks, dense areas, and stagnant zones appear. This is neither good nor bad. It is simply a reflection of the inner state. Colors and density of the aura, are often described as indicators of condition. Colors shift depending on emotions and thoughts. Density shows the level of energy and stability. But it is important to understand, the aura is not fixed. It is not a sentence. It reflects an ongoing process. Many factors influence the aura. Thoughts set the direction of energy. Emotions strengthen or weaken the field. The environment can support or drain it. The people we interact with, the places we spend time in, the information we allow in, all of this leaves an imprint. Sometimes it is said that certain people take energy from others. In reality, this is not theft, but resonance. If a person has inner gaps, foreign energy enters the field easily. When boundaries are clear, interaction becomes gentle and conscious. The aura is not protection from the world. It is a form of dialogue with it. Through it we sense safety or tension. Through it we attract events and people. Through it the world responds to our inner state. Here an important question arises. Is it possible to change this field? Can the aura become more stable? Can what is reflected within it be healed? The answer is yes, but not through external influence, rather through inner work. Through awareness of thoughts, the living and processing of emotions, the restoration of energy, and understanding deeper causes. At the beginning of life, a person's energetic field is usually clear and fluid. A child senses the world directly. Their subtle bodies are not yet burdened by rigid beliefs or deep emotional knots. The aura is flexible, open, and easily restored. This is why children react so strongly to atmosphere and return to a state of joy so quickly. Over time, life leaves its marks. Trauma, loss, disappointment, and unaccepted emotions gradually reshape the subtle bodies. In some places, energy begins to flow more weakly. In others, protective layers form. The aura becomes denser, but not always more stable. Sometimes this density is a way of surviving. Distortions do not appear suddenly. They accumulate. When a person does not allow themselves to feel, the astral body contracts. When they live in constant tension, the etheric level becomes depleted. When the same thoughts repeat for years, the mental body grows rigid. And when deep experience remains unconscious, the causal level holds on to old patterns. Awareness becomes the turning point. The moment a person begins to notice their states instead of running from them, energy starts to return. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually. A felt emotion frees the astral body. An understood thought softens the mental one. An accepted experience weakens the karmic imprint. Spiritual work changes the sense of self, not because it makes a person special, but because it brings them back to wholeness. Meditation, silence, attention to the body, and honesty with oneself help the subtle bodies align. The aura becomes clearer and more integrated. The possibility of healing energetic memory always exists, even when the experience seems too heavy or too old. The memory of the soul does not disappear, but it can be transformed. What was once a source of pain can become a source of understanding. A person is not required to carry everything they have ever lived through. They can choose what to keep and what to release. And this choice begins with attention, with the moment they stop living on autopilot. This is the understanding we are approaching now. A way of seeing a human being not as a collection of problems, but as a path, as a process of returning to oneself. A human being is not only a body, not merely a collection of habits, roles, and reactions. It is an entire universe where the physical level intertwines with energy, emotions, thoughts, and the deep memory of the soul. When we begin to see ourselves this way, many things fall into place. The subtle bodies are not an abstract, esoteric idea. They are a map of the inner world. Through them, we can understand why the body reacts the way it does, why emotions arise before words, why thoughts sometimes seem to live a life of their own, and why certain events repeat, even when we consciously want something different. The aura reflects the journey of the soul. It shows the current state, not a final verdict. Within it, one can sense where there is fatigue, where there is protection, and where there is openness and light. And most importantly, it changes together with the person. Every conscious choice leaves its imprint within it. The energetic memory of the soul does not store experience in order to trap us in the past. It preserves it as a reminder of what has been lived, of what has been meaningful, of what still awaits completion. When we stop fighting this memory and begin to understand it, it no longer controls us from the shadows. To remember who you are means to stop seeing yourself only through external circumstances. It means to sense a depth where there is more space than it seems, more freedom than we are used to believing, and more knowing than logic alone can contain. Perhaps much within you already knows the answer. Perhaps you have felt it many times through the body, through emotions, or through a quiet inner response. And if you allow yourself to listen, that answer can become clearer. The path back to oneself is not always fast, but it is always real, and every step toward awareness brings us closer to who we have always been.